So about 20 years, give or take, I read a line, one single line, in the middle of a gorgeous paragraph in a teeny tiny little book written by the modern-day mystic Joel Goldsmith. This little book is called Practicing the Presence. If you're a practitioner, you know that book because we teach from that often in our practitioner training classes. And it was one of those moments where have you ever had this where you read something and it's as if, it's like a dun-dun, you know? I mean, it was earth-shattering, and in the same moment, it was like this sunrise happened within me. And that line is the title of my talk today, The I in the Midst of Me. The I in the midst of me. And this is really special for me. So I'm so excited to share it with you today. I want to share that sunrise with you a little bit if I can. The whole quote from Practicing the Presence from Joel Goldsmith is, "The I in the midst of me is mighty. I go before me to make the crooked places straight. I am with me in the deep waters. I am beside me in the fiery furnace." Right now, this planet certainly feels a little bit like a fiery furnace. All the more reason to recognize the I in the midst of all of it. This I that Joel Goldsmith is talking about is the ancient wisdom of the I am, that indwelling divine presence within all of us. I remember when I read that, the I in the midst of me, I felt so companioned in that moment. I realized in that moment that I had low-grade loneliness. And it was in that moment that I went, oh, if the indwelling spirit, the I am lives in me, then I can never be alone. That is not a truth. I can feel lonely at times in my human evolution and experience, but I am never alone because that divinity is within me. You know, for centuries, across traditions, the I, representing the I am, has been present. And the way that we're going to look at it today, this I am, is our intuition. That I, that intuition. The I in the midst of me that Goldsmith was talking about was just that. It was our intuition, what Ernest Holmes called our God voice. In 1927, Ernest Holmes wrote, "I believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God." So I invite you to think for a moment, if you will, about a time in your life when you had a knowing about something, a gut feeling, if you will, about a person or a situation or a job or a relationship. We have all had these experiences, every single one of us. And this doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a little thing. You know, it could be as simple as you've been thinking about someone, you've been thinking about them for a while, maybe someone you haven't talked to in a while, and so you decide finally, like, oh, okay, all right already, I'm gonna call them, and you call them, and the person goes, "I've been thinking about you." Okay, God. You know, it can be as simple as that. Just a few days ago, I was in my house and I was listening to Spotify and I was cleaning and I was taking care of chores and doing things. And a song came on my Spotify magical Alexa thingamajiggy that I hadn't heard in a long time. And it's a song by Sarah Bareilles called "I Choose You." And at some point we will do that here. It's a Darcy Bradley for sure. And And that happens to be the song that was sung at my sister Kelly's wedding. I had the blessing of officiating her wedding, Kelly and my brother-in-law Craig. And Kelly's best friend Sabina, who grew up in our family, she's really, a member of our family, so to speak, sang that song so beautifully. And I had this lens when that song was sung at their wedding, because I was 10 and a half years old when Kelly was born. I remember the first time seeing her. We're now the best friends, right? But I got to watch her grow up. She took her first steps to me. I taught her how to swear. Sorry, Mom. I was 14. What did I know? Didn't go over well at family parties, but that's another talk altogether. So Kelly is dear to me. And when Sabina sang this song at their wedding, it was through that lens that I was able to see my sister, and I was able to see the full trajectory and all the ways that the divine had played in her life. And I remember feeling intuitively, knowing that there were little angel babies just waiting to come in and make them a family with children in this lifetime. And so when that song came on, I just had tears. It was such a beautiful memory for me, observing that. And what I am learning to do, what I have not been good at heretofore, but I'm really working on, is in the moment sharing what I'm feeling. Stopping what I'm doing and realizing that in that moment, it's important to share that love, right? To put that out into the world more. I'm going to invite you all to do that, because since I've been doing that, my relationships have just been feeling that much more special. At any rate, I had tears, and I texted Kelly and Craig. I seldom text them both, but I texted them both, and I said, the song came on, and I shared everything I just shared with you. And just as I hit send, my finger was on the phone. My phone rang, and it was Kelly. Hey, Shans, how you doing? You're not going to believe this. Thank God my sister's a practitioner. She was able to hold space for me while I was like, That was the divine in action. And I was at choice. I could have heard that song, thought to do that, and not done it. How many times do we do that? But in that moment, I was able to share. Why? Because my intuition, my God voice said, just stop what you're doing. The kitchen counters will get cleaned. Text your sister. Tell her about this beautiful memory that you have. What I know for sure is that in this simple example that I had just 2 days ago, it was the I in the midst of me that nudged me to do this. Now, you might be resonating very deeply with this little anecdote, this little story, or you might be sitting there and going, yeah, coincidence. It's a coinky-dink, Shans, whatevs. It's fine. Okay, woo-woo. You might be sitting there thinking, that's happened to me once in my life, twice in my life, none that I can recall. I get that 100%. Wherever you are, sort of on this continuum of experiencing your intuition or not, I invite you into what Ernest Holmes responded when people would say, it's just a coincidence, what are you talking about? He wrote, if we believe that it, meaning our God voice, will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. In other words, it's always at work. It's always at work. Folks ask me all the time, well, how do I know this particular God voice, this particular intuition or knowing is my God voice? How can I differentiate that, right? How do I know that that's what it is? And I'm going to unpack this a lot more deeply in my workshop this afternoon at 12:30. It's from 12:30 to 2:30. If you don't know about it, it's called Growing Your Intuition. And I'm really going to talk to you and share with you tools that I've used over the many decades in developing my own intuition from a spiritual perspective, which I think is the only way we can develop our true intuition. But here's the deal. Your intuition, your God voice, sounds and feels very different in your body than your logical mind. In no point in this conversation am I negating in any way your logical mind. That is of spirit as well. I'll get to that in a moment. But they feel very differently. They feel very, very differently. Your ego will often emphasize fear or protection or insecurity. That's often what will come up for you from an ego voice. In contrast, the voice of your knowing or your indwelling spirit or your intuition is energetically lighter. It's lighter and it's more buoyant in your body temple. It does not come from fear, rather it comes from love. Your intuition, your God voice, the guidance that you receive that has no edges is your intuition. The guidance that you receive that uplifts you, that nudges you forward rather than bringing your energy down is your God voice, is spirit within you, your indwelling spirit guiding you. Intuition feels like an internal expansion. Even when the guidance is news that may be not what you consciously want in the moment. You might receive some intuition or some guidance, and it might not be what you want, but if you really tune in, there is an expansion that happens in that no, or in that wait, or in that yes. There's always an expansion. When we are living from an egoed thought or idea, there is a contraction. It makes us smaller. It makes us feel smaller. Do you follow what I'm saying? And it's very specific. So I'd like you all to take a breath, if you would. Those of you here and those of you at home, online. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. We're just going to put some practice to this. And in the safety and the love of this sacred space, taking in a deep breath, I invite you to easily and effortlessly bring into your mind's eye, bring into your body temple, bring into your heart that which makes you feel internally expanded. This may be the things you love to do or participate in, the people you love, the fur babies you love, the acts of service that make you feel alive. Just allow yourself to feel what that feels like in your body temple for just a moment. Those loving thoughts, places, people. And now for just a short moment in the safety and love of this place, and this will be different for everyone, allow yourself to think about something that you are afraid of, that worries you, that you have concern about. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It's okay. It could be a little niggling thing, something you have to get done, whatever that is. And notice how you feel in your body temple right now. Those of you who are empathic just felt it in the room. Everything shrinks. And now in the next breath, once again with ease, I invite you to think about those thoughts that make you feel expanded. The things you love, the people you love, the places you love, the pets you love, the ideas you love. Take a deep breath. And just notice how quickly you can replace those ego thoughts with the thoughts of divinity itself, with love itself. And notice how that feels in your body. And so from this expanded place, I invite you to gently open your eyes. This is a powerful tool that you can use anywhere you are at any time. If the humanness, the matter of this world comes into your awareness, I invite you to anchor this moment in your memory and take a deep breath and allow your heart to pour in the opposite, to pour in the love, to pour in the expandedness, to pour in the divinity itself. And when you pour it in, what you're feeling in that moment, when your vibration raises, it's meeting your inner knower. There's a recognition of truth that happens in your body. And you go, yes. Are you with me? These are subtle. Energy work is very subtle, but the more you do it, the more it becomes automatic. This does not mean in any way, shape, or form that we do not look at that which is causing harm or difficulty or challenge to ourselves, to our relationships, or to the world. Far from it. It allows us to navigate that even better. It buoys us to have the strength to navigate that. So this is a tool that is used not only in spiritual circles, but in social justice circles. To visualize the truth of the thing, to visualize the highest vision of the situation. It's used all the time. Otherwise, we'd just be down here all the time, right? This is very, very practical. And for folks on a spiritual path, we then take it to the next level, and it becomes a way of living. It becomes a continuous conversation with the divine. You're going through your day, maybe someone calls you on the phone, and it's just not a very nice conversation. You have a tool to navigate it. And I'm going to talk a lot more about those tools later this afternoon. Pour in the opposite. We also talk about this a lot in practitioner training, don't we, Melissa? Pour in the opposite. We have the capacity to hold so much in our one body. This is ancient wisdom. This is nothing new. I mean, we teach it in New Thought, but this is ancient wisdom. This comes from Hinduism, the oldest religion we have on record, predating Judaism and Christianity by thousands of years. We know that the Vedic sages relied fully on their intuition. They honored it. They revered it. They taught the following: the profound and powerful faculty emerging directly from the light of cosmic consciousness, which is what we are tapping into when we are replacing the negative with the positive, when we are allowing ourselves to expand rather than to contract in order to move forward. They wrote, the profound and powerful faculty emerging directly from the light of cosmic consciousness, which illumines one's mind, can grant deeper insight into any phenomenon or event. We can take this tool of our intuition, our God voice, into any situation. And in any situation, equipped with our intuition leading the way, our God voice leading the way, life becomes so much less dramatic. It becomes so much more harmonious. And space is created for us to do the work, to move the dial, to make this world a better place. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's all connected. When I talk about this idea in the beginning of service, that we do our own inner work so that we can then take it out into the world, this is that. The more that we become profoundly in tune with our attunement, our opportunities in any given moment to align with the divine, the more that we do that on an ongoing breath-by-breath basis, recognizing we are always at choice in any moment. We can choose that which contracts us, or we can choose the thoughts that expand us. We are always at choice in this divine conversation, and what I can tell you is that Spirit is always nudging us along in an expanded way if we will listen. The man Jesus said, "It is not I, but the Father or Spirit within that doeth the work." This is ancient truth. And the more that we can hold to this, the more powerfully we can move forward in our lives, the more powerfully we can create change in our lives. In doing this work, one of the most important things to remember is that the I in the midst of me and the me in the midst of I is meant to be fully embraced. It's not meant to be compartmentalized. This is the second part of this conversation. Recognizing first what it is and then recognizing that all of our parts are meant to be welcomed and embraced and understood and loved. All of them. In other words, it's not that we are to separate our ego mind from our divine mind. It's that we're to recognize that it is all of the divine mind. In our incarnation as human beings on the planet, we experience this humanness. The great scientist Jonas Salk, who invented the polio vaccine, said, "Intuition will tell the thinking mind where to look next." Case in point. Intuition will tell the thinking mind where to look next. Thank you, Jonas Salk, for listening to your intuition and creating the polio vaccine for all of us. This is the spiritual path. We're always being asked to pay attention to this relationship. There's a man by the name of Dr. Richard Schwartz. You therapists know his work well, I am sure. He created what is called internal family systems. And this model has been transforming psychology for decades now. And it's really coming into the zeitgeist. I'm seeing it everywhere now. It's become much more well-known because it's incredibly effective. In a nutshell, his groundbreaking work explains that all of us have these many parts within us, within ourselves, almost like sub-personalities, if you will, but not to be confused with multiple personalities. That's not what we're talking about. It's totally different. Rather, it's simply the different aspects of our ego that work together to keep us safe. We all have parts within us, for example, that want to manage everything. He calls them the managers. Anybody? Our managers can show up as our controllers sometimes. We also have that part of us that just wants to head for the hills. We are going to exile ourselves from the entire situation. You figure it out. You figure it out, Pat. I'm out. See ya. Anybody? We also all have the part of us that is ready to fight. You know, it's like the firefighter. However, sometimes our firefighter can put the hose on everything instead of just what's on fire. We can just, all of it. We all have these parts within ourselves. All of us. And everything in between. Everything in between. I invite you to think of these human parts as our me, knowing all the while that at the helm and holding space for all of our human parts is our indwelling spirit, the I. And the spiritual walk in this life, beloveds, is to recognize that all of these exist within us for a reason. For a reason, because when we recognize, let's say, our manager part, the part of us that wants to control things, when we have a full grasp and understanding what that is within ourselves, we can recognize that when it shows up in someone else, and we can be far more compassionate with them, can't we? Oh, you've heard me say so many times, the work that we do in this spiritual community is making the unconscious conscious. When we recognize that someone's manager is showing up, someone's controller is showing up, in any given moment, it's simply because that part of them is afraid, and we can hold that space for them. It's a powerful spiritual practice. It's a powerful spiritual practice. Our intuition knows what triggers us. And our intuition also knows what heals us. And so if we can begin to listen deeply, we can begin to make sense of that. In this thing called You, Ernest Holmes wrote so beautifully on this. He wrote, "There is an intuition within you which already knows that you are one with good and that your destiny is certain. Listen to this intuition, for it is the voice of God within you." Your intuition is the most true thing about you. I invite you to welcome all the parts that make up your glorious being. It's really easy to try to separate it out. I invite you not. I invite you to really welcome all of those parts. And here's the key, if you can. Do it with a sense of humor. The ego will not abide us laughing at it. There is so much power in a moment if you are feeling controlling and you can say to whomever is in the room, "Look at me right now. Look at what I'm doing right now. Look at me trying to control this situation." Yeah, Susie. The ego just goes, wah, wah, wah. So I invite you to really keep your sense of humor in all of this. That's hugely important. You will notice many people who have done this work for a long time easily laugh at themselves because they're free, because they know the truth. They laugh with, well, isn't that silly? I invite you into that this week. Notice where you can giggle at your ego. Say, "Oh, aren't you sweet, honey? Look at you, just trying to keep everything in order." Okay. You know? Celebrate your humanness. It's really easy in this conversation to mistakenly think that we must be spiritual and live from the I all the time. I have never met a human being, ever, who does that. The Dalai Lama constantly laughs at himself all the time. When he notices these things come up, he names them. It's really profound. I invite you to celebrate your humanness. And that is the spiritual path. When you're authentically laughing at an old pattern, when you're authentically able to say, "I need some help with this certain thing. I'll reach out to Anne or a practitioner." That is the divine path. So I invite you to joyously welcome all the parts of you that make up your extraordinary and magnificent me. Because it's great to be you. There's only one you in the entire world. There will only ever be one you, ever. The way you make your breakfast, the way you sing, the way you walk your dog, the way you parent your kid, the way you learn something, the way you are in relationship with others is uniquely you, and it's magnificent. It's magnificent. Know that you are so deeply loved, that you are profoundly guided, that no matter what your parts are, you're magnificent. That's just human stuff that we're here on this journey to learn about, to grow from, and to move through. This work, especially the work of an empath, especially the work of an intuitive, is about integrating all the parts of yourself and understanding it so well that your feet are firmly planted on the ground. It's very easy to kind of, especially with all the things that are happening in this world, it's very easy to just sort of check out, to leave, to want to sort of stay in the ethereal realm, if you will. There's a couple of ways we do this as humans. There's people who just live in the realms of the angels all the time because the earth is too hard. There's people who live in the earth space and refuse to let in the angelic realm because it feels safer. I'm inviting you to be in the middle. The Buddha taught the middle way. This is that. When Jesus said to be in the world but not of it, this is what he meant. To be in the world, but to not succumb to all of the stuff, because there is a lot of stuff. It is a fiery furnace right now. And to hold to the I in the midst of me will get us through this time. To do this work, it can be messy because we are integrating our messy human parts. But if you allow your sense of humor in, it will help, it will serve you. There is a poem that speaks so magnificently to the integration of all of our parts and to surrendering fully to the I in the midst of all of it at the same time. It's a poem called The Guest House by Rumi. I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and close your eyes. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to go right into our prayer. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.